Hey, party people. Welcome to Watch Me Design a Fashion Collection, episode 728. A couple of videos ago, I went through a bunch of different binders and headers, and I pulled these. Okay, these are not final picks, but they're the ones that I'm interested in exploring further. And then at some point while I was shopping, I realized I skipped an important step. And that important step is when you are designing in the real world and you are shopping for your materials, you need to figure out what you can afford, okay? Whether you are a first-time designer starting out your collection, and you need to figure out your price point, right? You need to figure out your customer and your general price point for what you're offering the world, okay? Because all of that customer price point, all those things kind of inform the direction of your company. And then if you're more established and you still need to stay within, nobody walks into a Gap to buy a $500 leather jacket. That is not what they expect at Gap. That's not what they're like. What does Gap know about leather? Okay, people walk into the Gap because they want, $30 t-shirts and, $40 jeans. Okay, so you need to stick to your customer and stick to your price point. So I have this kashi here, and I'm going to be doing a future video as part of the technical design series on the nitty-gritty of filling out a cost calculation sheet. And I will be selling these things on Etsy. My templates have all of the formulas, but just for the sake of getting started shopping, let's do a brief calculation, like a really fast one. Now, when you look at this, you might be freaking out because I have so many entries, but don't freak out because most garments aren't going to need all these slots. So real quick, style number, description, size range, okay? Date revised, okay? Because you want to keep this one revised. Make sure that this is the most current version of the cost sheet. And then season and label. And, I put this label here because, some companies, they have multiple labels under their umbrella, like Marc Jacobs, Mark by Marc Jacobs, whatever. And then you have private label. And then here you have your materials. This top section is your materials. And, not all garments are going to have all this stuff, okay? So I put in slots for 3 contrasts. If you need more, you can add more slots in Excel. 3 slots for lining. And you may be thinking, Zoe, who has 3 different linings in one garment? Quick example, let's say you have a winter jacket. Maybe you want to line the body in a nice warm flannel, but flannel is not great for sleeve lining because your shirt, it doesn't want to pull through something that's not slippery. Okay, you want to slide a shirt into a slippery sleeve lining, so that's your second lining. And then neither of those are particularly great for pocketing. Okay, you can get a cheap cotton muslin-y, sturdy pocketing that feels good against the hand, doesn't feel cold and slippery in the winter, and isn't so thick and fat and hard to sew, multiple layers like the flannel. Okay, because if you do something like a thick pocketing, you're going to start seeing that bulk. It's unattractive. So 3 linings, couple of interfacings, trims, and here you would put in, zippers, buttons, different closures, if you're buying lace trim, etc., etc. And then labels, and I have 6 slots, and you're like, holy crap. And you know what? Pick up a shirt. Pick up a pair of pants and check out all the labels. You have your main label, country of origin. Okay, you absolutely need these. Size tab, care instructions label, hang tag, and a lot of people, they'll put a size sticker. You go buy jeans and they have that size sticker running along the pant leg, so when it's folded, you can still see what size it is. All kinds of labeling. And then I have some miscellaneous stuff here, like if you have a nice jacket and maybe you also sell the whole thing with a hanger and a poly bag, if that's your thing, So all kinds of things can go in this section here. So all the materials, and then in these categories, the category, the vendor, who you're buying it from, description, color, yield. So up here in the yardages, it could be 1.6 yards, blah, 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 and or pieces. This is the unit price, duty, freight, okay, and your landed cost. This section here is the manufacturing costs, marking, cutting, sewing, finishing, special finish 1, special finish 2, and that is like if you are sending something out to get embroidered, some other kind of decorative stitching, screen printing, something on your chest pocket, and then packaging. So there's that, and then here in this section, this gets a little nebulous. Okay, materials overhead, CMT overhead. Now, CMT overhead, you're not really gonna need if you're not doing any production in-house. You need it if you have any kind of cutting, sewing, marking, production in your facility. Okay, but if you have everything done by other people, you're not gonna have CMT overhead. You're just gonna have CMT costs. What's CMT? Cut, make, trim. Okay, and materials overhead, yeah, because you're definitely going to have inventory and wastage and admin expenses, kind of overhead, sales expenses, insurance, and I take that out of the cut, make, trim costs, the percentage of the cut, make, trim. Actually, that should probably be the percentage of your materials. If you recall from, I don't know, episode 1, 2, 17, whatever, I had said that I wanted like a coat, a basic coat without a lot of decoration and extra labor to be in between $200 and $300. So here's the total overhead and expenses, and here is the total cost, adding these three up. And then I have this section here where I have the formulas set to tell me what my selling price would be at these different markups. I call it the selling price, and it depends on whether you're going to go the wholesale route and you're selling at this price to wholesalers and they're marking it up, or if you are going direct to retail and this is the selling price you're posting right on your online store, etc. And so I have these various markups because there are other things to take into consideration, like maybe, you got a really great deal on a bunch of fabric, but you know that you can get more, the market will bear a higher price. Or maybe something was a little bit more expensive to make, but people just aren't going to pay for that, and so you mark that to a lower markup. So if you want to see your profit, you take your selling price and you take your costs, $201.25, and that is your profit. And do you get to take all of that home? $70 a coat? No. You have to pay people that also work to make your garments, but are not on here, like your pattern maker. Okay, the pattern maker, it doesn't go in here because they don't work on each individual garment, but you obviously have to pay them because they worked on developing the garment. Same with designers, same with graphic designers, same with the guy who runs your website. Those people, right? You don't pay them piecemeal like you would pay for each item cut, for each garment cut. You would pay the cutter, okay? But those other people you're paying is going to come out of this. Some of it's here, some of it's here, okay? So that's your basic cost calculation sheet rundown. And so I was playing around with these numbers on Excel earlier. And if I have $100 for a total of materials, $75 for a basic CMT, and again, I'm not in here is not including, any kind of beading or embroidery, right? It's a basic cutting, sewing, finishing, packaging, marking, kind of CMT, and then the overhead off of that. And so I'm here. Remember, I wanted it around $200-300 for a basic coat. So we're at total materials cost is $100, and you're like, woohoo, that's a ton of money. No, it's not really. It's not super a lot. So let's take a coat, and coat is gonna be like 3 yards of fabric, maybe, depending on the width. Okay, a lot of denims, they're like 58, 54 inches wide. You know, silks tend to be more like 48, 44 inches wide, which reduces the cuttability per yard a lot. And so, of course, you have to think about the length of something. So if you have a high shoulder point of your center front, and, you know, how much is that? 36 inches is a yard, and from high shoulder point, that only goes to mid thigh on me, and I'm only 5'4". Right? So there's that, and then all the panels, 2 front panels, 2 back panels, coats being pretty broad. You're probably not going to get 4 panels all the way across. And then when you think about yields, you also have to think like, how much fabric is it going to take to cut my largest size? So I'm going to go 3 yards on a coat. On the self, let's say I don't have any contrast, 3 yards of lining. I'm gonna go with like half a yard of interfacing. And then, so here, if you're at $100, I wanna say no more than half of that is gonna be your self fabric, all the outer fabric. Okay, so that's self and contrast together. So 50 divided by 3 with duty and freight, let's say that each is $15 a yard, and then you add duty and freight, you get about $50. 3 yards of line, let's say we're gonna go with a $5 lining, and so that's 15. Interfacing, half a yard, let's say it's $6, that's $3. This whole kit and caboodle, like they sell these package deals, let's say it's $5 for this whole section. Trim, let's say we have a zipper, and then we have a button for the top and for the cuffs. Zippers, especially outerwear zippers, like a number 5 metal teeth separating, or a two-way separating. They can be like $5-6 depending on your minimum. So 1 piece at $5. And buttons, let's say you need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 buttons. Oh, let's do 7, because let's add one to the hang tag. You know, that extra piece that nice items come with. It comes in a little baggie, and that's your spare button. Okay, so 65, 73, 78, miscellaneous, taxes, blah, 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 $100. Adds up real fast, right? So let's say that we're shooting for $10 to $20 for your outer fabric. I'm gonna go 18. I don't wanna go more than 18 there. I would prefer 8 to 18. Okay, because I do want a few things that are less expensive, like, you know, small shift dresses that are on the cheaper scale. This is not an exact science. This is kind of trying to figure out, I mean, there's an art to math, there's a jiggling with math. This is, you know, there's only so much estimation that you can do. This is kind of like a basic playing around and seeing where in the fabric scale of cost you can source your materials. Okay, so once you get here, the smart thing to do, the money smart thing to do, is to pull some fabrics, see what you got, pull some designs, you know, do some basic layouts and do some basic cost sheets. And see if you are falling in the realm. You know, you should be talking to cutters, talking to sample sewers, being like, how much does it cost? You know, show them a garment. When you're talking to sewers, like, they don't want to talk about like vague things, because they don't want to give you numbers for one thing and be beholden to those numbers later on. So take them a shift dress and be like, how much would it cost you to make this shift dress? And be like, something like that, that'll cost you, etc. dollars. Show them something specific instead of these vague hand wavy things, okay? Go buy a dress, go pull one from your closet that's very close to what you're trying to make construction wise. Talk to them. You're gonna get these numbers for, per piece. Cost sheets, they're really not a let's sit down and fill all this out in one go sort of thing. It requires a lot of research and phone calls. Anyway, so when we're looking through fabrics, $8 to $18, I've decided that that's the safest route. And of course, if I find something that is, that looks really good, that's cheaper, of course I'm going to go for it. I do want to go through some leathers. And, oh, that reminds me, when we're talking about leather. Okay, so leather is priced by square foot. 12 inches by 12 inches. Okay, that's just the way it's done. Don't ask. Okay, and so when you are thinking about it in terms of yardage and yields, kind of picturing it in your mind, I mostly just do it by 12. Because if you put 12 square feet, 3 by 4, so here is 36 inches, which is a yard. And here is 48 inches. And that's like an average width for fabrics, right? Like silks are about 44, denims are about 54, right around there, 48 inches. And so just like to help you picture things, I just think of times 12 to be a yard. So when I see a price on a leather, let's say something is $6 a square foot, times it by 12, and it is $72 a yard. And you're like, holy crap, that is a lot of money. And this is where I say, yeah, that's why leather stuff is so freaking expensive. Did you watch my Designing with Leather video where I break down why leather is so expensive? And one of them is because of this kind of thing, and the other is the individual cutting. Go watch that video. Anyway, so with my costs being like this, I am looking at leather being more of a contrast fabric that I can use sparingly. I won't be able to do like a whole coat out of leather and stay within my price range. No, not so much. But I can do things like leather accents, like maybe a top collar with a welt pocket trim or patch pockets. Or maybe I can just do like leather sleeves, like a little hat tip homage to varsity jackets that have the wool bodies and the leather sleeves, very Americana. I can do things like that. I can add leather patching to some of the Boro-esque effects that I had going this from the sketches last week. But because I'm looking at my costing, I know not to fall in love with the leather and decide I'm going to do a whole maxi skirt or, a whole big like knee-length coat out of it, okay? Because that's not my price point. Unless I can get a leather that's like $2 a square foot, and then that stuff is terrible. And me, I've worked with leather for so long, I can't look at cheap leather anymore. I'm terrible. I'm a terrible snob. I'm not even sorry about it. So I know that this kind of stuff is not the most fun thing in the world, but for designers, it is one of the most important things. So please learn this stuff. Grow your companies, grow your design lines. Give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next video.